Firstly, I just want to say a big welcome. We've got quite a few of our preferred partners on here today. There's still some more coming through. I can see them come in as I speak. And for the first time, we've actually got quite a few business owners coming in that aren't existing preferred partners of ours. So they may or may not know a little bit about Blue Toro. So we've got two very different audiences here. So welcome, and I'm excited to get started today. So just checking housekeeping that everybody can hear me okay. If you just pop your hand up or pop it in the chat, if someone can confirm. Yep, thank you, Jay. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me and see me, and we're definitely ready to go. Thanks, Jim, for putting up your hand. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Janelle. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blue Toro. My background is building businesses for big businesses. So my background is building large-scale tech and marketing systems for big corporates around the world. And 13 years ago, I started Blue Toro. And since then, we became known as the fastest growing automotive network in the country. And many of you may know that we used to be a mobile mechanic franchise, and we had a large national franchise group around the country. And since then, we've kind of pivoted a little bit. And now what we do is we take those same systems and all the infrastructure that we set up as a franchise, and now that we do that for independents, and we provide some of those services to independent workshops under their own brand. So the topic today is around cash flow. Cash flow is super important, not just this time of year, obviously. You know, we've got the peaks and troughs of the crazy December period and January as well, but it's super important all year round. And doesn't matter how busy your workshop is or how established it is, cash flow is the number one thing that gets us caught out. And if we don't take control of it, it's the number one reason that businesses don't do well or even fail in this country. So we want to make sure we get a handle on that. What we've got today is a bit of a checklist, and it's going to be some of the things you expect around numbers, but a lot of things that you probably haven't thought about before. So what I encourage you to do is take notes as you go. We're going to go through 6 main topics, and we're going to go from basically in order in terms of what you should really start with and get that section in order before you move on to the next one and the next one. And as we go through it, you're going to find that some of these you've nailed it, you've got it down pat, you're really happy with how that's going. Others you think, oh, that's actually a good reminder. Write those down, and there's probably some things in there you haven't thought of before as well. So as you go through, take some notes, and at the end we'll have some questions. I'm just going to introduce Rebecca here, who's also on screen. Rebecca is one of our partner advisors at Blue Toro, and many of you would know who Rebecca is, of course. She's going to be moderating any questions. So in the chat, you'll see a chat at the bottom of your screen. Put in questions as they come up. Don't wait till the end, just pop in questions, and Rebecca will pipe up if she thinks that's a great question for right now, and we'll answer them as we go. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end and we'll have time for questions at the end. So let's get started. This session is being recorded, and we'll send out slides. We'll send out the recording afterwards. So let's get started. So tip number 1, double down on marketing. Now, this might not be where you expect us to start. However, you know, every business needs a constant stream of new business coming through. Don't care how established you are, don't care how busy you are. Why this is so important is we want to avoid that feast or famine. We want to avoid that roller coaster of being busy one week and not busy another week. There's always going to be some level of seasonality. We know Easter gets quiet. We know straight after Christmas gets quiet. School holidays can get quiet. Budget times can get quiet. So there's always going to be seasonality, and there's always going to be natural attrition. So inevitably, some of your customers are going to die. They're going to move. They're going to sell their car. They're going to go to a competitor. You're going to lose customers. So you need to have a steady stream of new customers coming through. And what we recommend for established businesses with a good customer base is to aim for a good, at least 20% of new customers coming through on a monthly basis. Might sound high, but the good position you're in there is, one, you're protecting your customer base because there is natural attrition, but also it means you can pick and choose. So you can start to drop some of your C and D customers and focus more on your A customers in particular. It means you also get to pick and choose some of the jobs. So the first tip here is around, don't drop marketing in the busy times. Think about the big corporates. They are earning billions and they spend more and more on marketing every year. Marketing is the lifeblood of your business. You need to make sure that not only you're getting a steady stream of customers, but you're building your credibility in your local market. So reviews, networking, people know who you are, people trust you, you're reliable, you're credible. When they search for you online, you've got a good number of reviews. So keep on top of your marketing. When businesses get busy, it's very easy to say, okay, I don't have to worry about it this week. I don't have to worry about it later. And I'm not talking about spending big. I'm talking about having the good fundamentals in place. Number two is reviews. Reviews, reviews, reviews. This is the number one way you can compete with the big guys. Most people, when they find a new workshop, when they're searching out a workshop, they're going through Google Maps, which is where all the reviews are housed, obviously. So they're looking for strong reviews, they're looking for credibility, they're looking for trust. Even if you've been referred by somebody, they're still looking at those reviews and checking you out and making sure there's somebody that this is a business they want to deal with. So if you want to compete with those big guys, it's much harder for big brands who have multi-locations to have many Google sites with many, many reviews on each one. So this is the number one way you can compete, and it costs not a single cent. So make sure you have a really good strategy around having QR codes at your front counter, even if you're mobile, having it at your point of sale, whether it's on the back of your diary, on FPOS or somewhere. So when someone's paying, you're actually asking for a review each and every time. Doesn't mean you get one each and every time, but you've got to keep asking. You've got to build those reviews up. The next one is prioritizing Google Maps. Now, this is where people get a little bit confused, and it's common because it is kind of marketing speak. There are three Googles. There is the Google Maps, and that's your Google business profile. That's where your reviews are housed. There's paid sponsored ads, and that's different again. And then there's your organic search, and that's attached to a website. Now, the Google Maps thing is where I believe every business should start. It's your asset, it's the most searched, and it's where most mechanics are found within Google Maps. And best of all, it's free. It's your asset, unlike ads, which come and go. And it's free, unlike SEO, which the big companies spend thousands on. And it's very hard for small businesses to compete with that. So prioritize getting your Google Maps right. The next one is always be networking, especially with local businesses. We are small businesses in small local communities, and it's really important that people know you and people are referring you. Now, most of us are involved in school sports, in our school with our kids, might be the church, it might be the Lions Club, it might be, you've got a hobby on the weekend, whatever it is, be involved locally, be in a network group like a BNI, a Chamber of Commerce. It takes a little bit of time, but the benefits are definitely well worth it. Start referring others. If someone needs a real estate agent, refer your local real estate guy. Someone needs an accountant, refer your accountant. The more you do that, the more the referrals will keep coming back, and the more you'll be known as the mechanic or as the car guy in your area. And lastly, refer a friend. This is just a really simple system you can set up in your workshop. Doesn't have to be fancy, but pick on your A customers. A customers attract more A. They know other A customers. So with your best customers, be it an individual or a business, have some sort of a referral system in place. It could be as simple as a one-liner on your invoice, which is refer a friend and get a free car wash or get $50 off your next service. Have a reason for them to refer. But it costs no money. It's something you can set and forget on an invoice or an email. But these are the things, all of these things on here are really simple foundational things that actually cost you no money and are things that you need to invest a little bit of time on and make sure they're really rocking and rolling for you. Tip number two. Now, I said this starts from beginning to end. The first thing is you've got to get the phone to ring. You've got to get the leads coming in. The second thing is making sure you get good at converting over the phone. So it's no point having the phone ring if you don't answer the phone or you don't know or you're not very good at converting. So just think about it this way, no one wants to keep calling. So why is this important? No one wants to keep calling. The first business that can instill confidence and solve the problem usually wins the work, regardless of price. Now, this isn't about price. This is about solving the problem and converting over the phone. So the first thing I would say is answer that goddamn phone. 65% of calls to small workshops go unanswered. Now think about that for a second. And many workshops will say, "Oh, I call them straight back." And yeah, often they're called straight back. Often it's 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, that customer's gone. They've got to get a job done. They've got to solve a problem. They're ringing around until someone has solved that problem for them. So by the time you ring them back, they're on the phone to the workshop down the road. You might have some fancy system in place. If you get big enough, there's systems like Podium that help answer the phone for you and help direct the customer. So that's definitely something to think about. But think about the tech, whether you need Bluetooth headphones, whatever that looks like, the more you can answer the phone, the more business obviously you're going to convert. The next one might sound simple, but it's too often that a customer will call and say, how much for a service? And the natural response is to answer that question by saying, oh, it's, $350 or whatever it is. The tip here is it's usually not about the price. The reason the customer is asking the price is they actually don't know what else to ask. So what we always talk to our workshops about is solving that problem. So start with asking a few questions. What type of car? When's the last time it had a service? Does it need any other work? Have you got any concerns with it? Understand what the actual customer problem is, and they might reveal, I've got to get to a certain place, I've got to pick up my kids, or whatever it is. Once you've asked a few questions and you understand that problem, then solve the problem for them. Hey, that means you're probably up for a 60K service and you haven't had breaks for a while. So, all of that we can include this, that, and the other, and it's going to cost you around $350. The next thing is then asking for the booking. So it's going to cost you around $350. We're going to change the oil, we're going to rotate your tires, we're going to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got a spot available on Tuesday or Wednesday, which works best for you. It's amazing how many people spend a lot of time on the phone talking to that customer and then leave that customer hanging. So they're kind of like they're waiting for the customer to do something and actually book it in. You've got to ask for the booking. Just make it super simple as possible. We've got a spot on Tuesday or Wednesday. And you know what they're going to say? Okay, Tuesday's best for me. Or they might say, actually, can you do Friday? But you're locking them in, you're solving that problem for them, and you're making it super simple. So that's kind of the last point here. Make it easy. The amount of workshops that we hear, hey, can you text me your address? Can you text me the details and I'll get back to you? Oh, I actually don't know the price for that. I have to ring around and I'll come back to you later. You're just making it way too hard and it's just making it too easy for that customer to ring the next workshop. Make it as easy as possible. Solve their problem, book them in. Don't make them actually do any work and you're going to convert a lot more customers. Tip number 3 is pricing for profit, not charity. So at this point, you've got your marketing rocking and rolling, you've got the phone ringing, they're ringing, you're actually able to have some good conversations and convert them into jobs. This is a point where you need to start looking at your pricing. And a lot of workshops will say to us, I've been doing this for 20 years, I know how to price. But inevitably, when we do some mystery shopping and when we look at the pricing, most workshops in this country are undercharging. They're not overcharging. They're not trying to rip people off. They're actually ripping themselves off and undercharging. That's why we say price for profit, not charity. And why is this important? Because at the end of the day, you're here to be profitable and feed your family, period, full stop. That's why we're all in business. We're here to leave a legacy. We're here to have the lifestyle that we want. It's not earning gazillions. It's earning the money that we deserve when we're running a business. So what does that look like? So the first thing we need to understand, and probably the most important number in your business, is the percentage of your cost of sales. Now, you've probably heard me bang on about it before. The team certainly bangs on about it all the time. It's the number one number that we look at. Obviously revenue is important in terms of the money coming in. You need enough money coming in, but the cost of sales tells us the health of a business. So the cost of sales, if you're unsure, it's essentially the expense of anything to do with fixing a car. So that's parts, that's oil, it could be sublets, it could be tow trucks, it could be, a whole raft of things. But anything you've gone and spent money on to fix that particular customer's car is called cost of sales. Some people call it cost of goods sold, and every business has it. If you're a restaurant, your cost of goods is the food that you buy. Now, the benchmark in the industry, and this is after doing this for years, this is after looking at the books of lots and lots of different small workshops and big public companies as well. The industry benchmark is 33%, so that's a third. Now, if you're sitting at 34, 35, 36%, it's not worth losing sleep. It's probably a couple of things you can tweak. But what we see is most small workshops, and when I say small, I'm still talking about those earning a few $1 million a year, they're way over 40%. We've seen some workshops at 50%. So think about it this way, for every $100 you earn, $50 is going on parts instead of $33. That's a huge difference, and that's a huge chunk of cash. It means you're leaking profit left, right, and center, and you're just not making enough. And you're probably feeling the pinch when it comes to paying your bills. Now, if you don't know what your cost of sales is, the easiest way to figure that out is to look at your P&L. Don't look at it for a day, or don't look at it for a week. Look at it over a period of time, because inevitably not every single job's going to be 33%. If you've done a pre-purchase inspection, that's 100% profit. You're going to have some bigger jobs that have big ticket parts on them. There might be a big sublet attached. They're going to be way over 33. But generally for a general mechanical workshop, it should be, if you look at a period of time of at least say 3 months or more, it should average out at about 33%. And the way you do that is you take all the expenses of your oil, your parts, etc., divide that by your revenue, and it should be around a third. If you're not sure how to do that, just ask your bookkeeper, ask your accountant. And I guess the question here, and this is where we're going to have a little bit of interaction throughout the webinar, if you put in the chat now what you think your percentage of cost of sales is. If you know, fantastic, it means you're all over it. If you don't know, don't worry, many don't, but it's one of the probably the most important action you can take out of today is to actually understand that, because if you're nowhere near 33%, it's likely you've got a pricing problem and it's something you need to fix ASAP. So just take a second now, and if you could jump into the chat and put your percentage in there. I don't think anyone else can see the chat except Rebecca. So put in your answers there, and Rebecca's going to pipe up in a minute when we've got a number of responses in there, and we'll just get a feel for where everybody sits. And just a reminder, Rebecca, you're on mute. So what did we end up with?
Hello, I'm still waiting to see the question, the cost of sales come through. One thing though that I just did want to bring up is that concept of averaging it over a period of time. So, we talk to our partners and we talk about, look, try and look at every job, and then over a period of time, what do you think that period of time is to sort of average that 33% across the business?
Look, good question. I think the starting point would be look at last financial quarter. And I say last financial quarter because that's when the BAS is done and the books are closed, so everything's reconciled. Just start with that. Your best picture is going to be a year, but at least look at the last quarter, and that will give you the real numbers, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But beyond that, just be conscious of it. Every time you're doing a job, think about it. Whatever your parts are, just triple it. That's roughly what your invoice should be. And again, they're not all going to be like that, but it gives you a guide in your head. If you're doing a job and suddenly it's at 60%, really check in why that is. If it's some, big expensive part, there's only so much markup you can put on it. That's fair enough, but just keep that as a guide and keep moving towards that. But like I said, if it's not at 33, there's a pricing problem, and that's what we've got to fix.
Yep. Thank you. So we've got no feedback at this point in time, so I think we can just move on to the next.
Okay. So that either says to me, you don't want to share, and that's okay. That's okay, because they're our books, they're our numbers, so that's okay. Or potentially it means you're unsure. So, as business owners, we really need to know our numbers, and one of the main numbers we need to know is what that percentage looks like. Because if you flip that around, that's essentially 67% gross profit. And that's another number that people look at and essentially means the same thing, but in reverse. The next one is your rate card. So we talked about, potentially having a pricing problem if your cost of sales is too high. And rate card's an interesting one because what people mostly look at, and I mean workshop owners mostly look at, is their hourly rate. And we talk to many workshops who say, oh, my hourly rate's $150, so my pricing's fine. And I've been doing this for 20 years, my pricing's fine. Now, hourly rate's definitely important, and for benefit, the benchmark hourly rate's around $135 for light vehicles, around 160 for heavy. Varies across the country, but if you're nowhere near that, you're too low. If you're above that, then you're probably okay. But there's two other main factors that come into your pricing, and that is your parts markup. Now, there's a lot of workshops still marking up on cost, not sure why. It's the fastest way to get poor. And if you're one of our partners and you're getting parts discounts through us, the more discounts you get, whether you negotiate that with us or with somebody else, the more discounts you get, the more you're eroding your margin because you're passing that on to your customer. So always start with a minimum of marking up on retail. It's what every other industry does. The exception is heavy vehicles. It's a whole different ball game. They don't have that concept of retail within the heavy vehicle space. But for light vehicle mechanics, it should be based on retail. Now, not just on retail, but a markup on retail. And I know many of you have heard me talk about this before. The reason for marking up on retail is you're taking the risk. So you've got the risk and the cost of picking up the parts, returning the parts, warranting the parts, researching the parts. You've done all the heavy lifting, so that warrants it. And any other industry will do exactly the same. So the benchmark is between 10 and 40%. Some workshops will vary that, so the more expensive the part, the lower the markup, and vice versa. But it's getting to that comfort point somewhere in there. So if you don't have a markup today, I wouldn't suggest you go straight to 40%. But certainly if you've got no markup and you move to 10 or even 20, it's not going to make a difference to the customer on the end bill. It's going to be a very small amount, but it's going to make a massive difference to your bottom line each week and each year. The third main factor around a rate card is the system you use for pricing. So we know that manufacturers have book time for every single type of service and repair that's done. Having a way to actually be able to reference that book time and use that as the way to charge. So that whether that's a smart quote or an auto data, a service data through Capricorn, it all comes from the same end source at the end of the day. That's going to make a huge difference in pricing. And again, a lot of workshops say, but I know how to price. I've been doing it for a long time. And when we actually dig into it, they're still undercharging because often people will charge based on how long it takes, not on the book time. The other common thing we hear workshops say is, well, the book time's often too low. It takes actually more than that. And that's fine. You can actually adjust those settings. So if the book time's 2 and you think it's 2.5, adjust that. There's systems like Smart Quote where you can put a 30% or whatever percent markup on the actual book time itself to make sure it's covering all your bases. But again, don't sell yourself short. It also means customers have a lot more trust because they're seeing that this is coming from the manufacturer. You're not making it up. And the other way to look at it is that customer could have rung around anywhere. They've rung my car, they've rung UltraTune, they've rung the dealership. They're getting around the same price from all of those guys. If they ring you and you're significantly different, then it starts to create a bit of suspicion. Okay, why is this guy suddenly much cheaper? Or why is he quoting differently? Everyone else said I need an air filter on this service. You're not quoting me for that. So it starts to create a sense of doubt in that customer as well. So think about making sure you've got that standard in place, which is what the rest of the industry are using. The next one's really super simple. No discounting, no supplied parts. Hopefully you're not doing that anyway. And a lot of businesses, particularly when you're starting out, it's like any job's better than no job. But the reality is you're setting a tone for your business and the tone for the type of customers that you come in. If you're giving a discount, if you're allowing supplied parts, that customer's going to keep expecting that. They're not going to want that price to go up. They're going to come back and keep expecting more of that. and they're going to attract more of those customers. So like for like, A's attract A's, D customers attract D's. So they'll refer their mate down the road with a 20-year-old Falcon, and they bought their own brake pads and they'll bring those in too. So, and we also know they're the type of customers that we have the most problems with. They've got problem cars, and they're also often problem customers as well. So best to avoid them altogether. And importantly, review your payment terms. Everything should be on COD, with some exceptions. Fleet obviously is an exception. Uh, but we often hear workshops say, well, I've got my tax bill coming up. I've got to pay my salaries. I've got to pay my parts, but I can't meet that because I'm owed about 20, 30K. People haven't got back to me. They're not paying. They said they pay next week. It's been 6 weeks. COD. I mean, when somebody pays for the bill or not pay for the bill, when they've come to pick up their car and they're like, "Can I pay you next week?" No, no keys. It's COD. And the trap that often businesses fall into is trusting other businesses. Small businesses can be the worst payers. They'll want 30 days, they take 60 days. They're going to stretch it out as much as possible. So don't trust small businesses just because they're a business. You might start them out on COD and build that trust, and then they might ask for payment terms. Okay, let's go to 7 days. Just don't jump straight into 30 days with businesses that you don't know. And this tip's for mobile. So we get a lot of mobile mechanics say to us, look, I can't charge on book time because it's taken me 45 minutes to do the job and the book time's 2 hours. The customer's been there the whole time. They've seen that it's only taken me 45 minutes or an hour. How can I possibly charge two? And the trick here is don't put the labor time on your invoice. You're pricing for the job. So on the invoice, you'd say, supplied and fitted XYZ parts, replaced XYZ. So you itemize exactly what you did and exactly the parts you've provided, but you give a total price for that job. You don't need to give a price to say it was 2 hours labor. You're giving a total price. And that's made a massive difference to a lot of our mobile mechanics who switched to that. Suddenly they were able to charge book time and they were able to lift their revenue very, very quickly. Okay, so we've got leads coming in, we're converting over the phone, we've got our numbers right, we've got our rate card right. This is going to be the big game changer, setting up weekly cash buckets. And this is something I haven't really spoken about in the business before, but this was the number one game changer in my business. And it's something I wish I knew a long time ago. The system itself is called Profit First. You can look it up. There's a book on it. There's even a book called Profit First for tradies. It's a really important concept. And in my mind, it's like, well, you need to be making lots of profit to put profit first. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You need to have these structures in place to make sure your money's going where it should be, your money's accountable, and you're setting aside money for the important things like your ATO bill, for example. So what does this look like? Now, we all have an income account. We all have a transaction account where money comes in. And that's a super simple thing, but where it stops for a lot of businesses is that's their only account. They've got money coming in and their bills go out of the same. So you might have a bunch of bills coming up and they all land at the same time. We know that BAS is due at the same time that your parts bill's due, and then that week your salaries, and it all piles in at the same time. It's all going out at the same time, and we don't have a good handle of what's coming and going. And that's very easy to then lose control of that and have no money in the bank. So what we suggest, and what I strongly suggest you do, is to set up several accounts under that. So the income account remains purely for income. It's money coming in only. No money goes out of that account except to be dispersed to a number of bank accounts. So we suggest five. I suggest 5 different bank accounts, and these are in particular order for a reason. The first one is to have an ATO account. Now, many of you probably already have that in place. It's not that uncommon. It's a separate savings account, and savings on purpose. You want to get some interest out of that. It's designed to park money there until it's due. This is your BAS, your PAYG, your super, putting money aside every week into your ATO account. Now, you probably already do this. You probably already know that. It's not your money. Put it aside as soon as you get it, at least on a weekly basis. Now, in terms of how you calculate that percentage, we'll go through that in a second. But to go through the actual accounts first, The second one is to have a parts account, and many of you may already have this as well, but obviously it's one of our biggest expenses. It comes in once a month. We need to make sure we've set aside enough for that. Now, if you know your cost of sales, you know it's 33% or it's 38% or whatever it is, that's easy. Every single week, whatever you've made, if you've made 10 grand, $3,800 being 38% goes into your parts account. If you do that every single week, when your parts bill's due, you don't even think about it. You don't even stress. The money's sitting there. It's ready to go. Importantly, it's something you can attach a separate card to. So if you need to have some ad hoc parts purchases, something that doesn't fit on a Capricorn, it's just kind of a one-off thing. You have to go somewhere random for it. You've got a card to be able to pay for that, and you can also give that card to a team member as well. The next one, and this might feel a bit upside down, is a profit account. Now, many businesses work the other way around. They spend all their money and whatever's left goes into profit. Now, this system is the reverse. It kind of put the money aside that's kind of not really yours, the ATO and the parts, and then set aside a percentage that you're going to put away for profit every single week. And be dogmatic about this. Don't give up, don't change, don't skip a week. You might find that you have to start really small. It might even just be 1%. And 1% of 10 grand is like $100. That's okay. Just put that money aside every single week. Don't touch it. Make that one a savings account as well. And just be set in a regular routine to make sure you're putting your profit aside first. And over time, that percentage should change. You know, might start at 1%, even 0.5%. And then ideally, you want to get that to at least around 10%. The next one is obviously you need a salary account. That's your next big bucket. You want to make sure you can pay your people, and that includes you. So a lot of business owners we see, they pay their staff, they pay all the bills, that's fine. They're not really leaving enough for themselves. That doesn't matter if you're a sole trader or if you're on a PAYG. Make sure that account is putting enough aside for you as well. And then lastly is the OPEX account or the operations account. So this is for everything else. This is all your day-to-day expenses, your rent, your phones, your marketing, etc., etc. So in theory, you can have many, many accounts. I would definitely recommend starting with this structure. It's fairly simple in terms of getting them all set up. You know, there's a bit of work to do with your bank. But the next trick really then is, okay, how do I actually calculate this? How do I know where my percentages are today and what I should be working towards? So the simplest way to do this is get your P&L from and look at last quarter, last financial quarter, and just add it up. How much went to your BAS, your super, etc. How much was spent on parts? How much went aside for salaries and then everything else? That'll give you your percentages you're currently at. So you add all that up, divide it by your revenue for that period. That'll give you today's percentages. So start with that. So every single week, put those numbers aside, and then you know you're never going to run out of cash. You're always going to have cash aside for the big ticket things anyway. In terms of what it should be, that's going to vary depending on the size of your business, but I always look at the rule of thirds. So get rid of the ATO account, like put that aside. It's not our money. And then look at the other four in terms of thirds, right? So your parts account should be around a third. We talked about that 33%. Your operational costs should be around a third. And then your profit and your salaries combined should be around a third. Now, like I said, that's going to vary. A single operator mobile mechanic is going to be very different to an operation that has, 8 or so staff in it. But that's something that you can definitely work with your accountant on. So have those proactive discussions with your accountant. Have your bookkeeper set it up so you know where your numbers sit. And then have your accountant work with you on where you're at today and some targets you want to set yourself. So then it's getting into a regular rhythm. So what's your weekly rhythm? Moving cash around, do that every week, review it every month, and then adjust it every quarter. So this might be very new concept for everybody, but certainly for me, it was a definite game changer. And it's one that just helps you sleep at night, knowing that everything's got its home and everything's being paid for. Tip number 5 is prioritize repeat business. So we've done all that, and now it's how do we get our good customers coming back? So this is probably something that you do anyway, but we talk to a lot of workshops who scrambling for new business. I need the phone to ring. I need new leads. And it's like, are you doing service reminders? No. Okay, start with that. Service reminders for your existing customers is a must have in every single workshop. Doesn't matter how big, how small, how many customers you've got, service reminders is a must have. And it doesn't have to be fancy. So there's obviously systems like workshop software, etc. But they don't have to be fancy. As a franchise, we had some fancy systems. We would have some franchisees who'd pull out a paper diary and use that, and it worked for them. As long as it works for you and it's easy, start with that. Now, one of the tricks that we have in our business is repair reminders, and these are the things in between services, and things like workshop software aren't set up for that. But these are, if you look at a red, amber, green for every single job, the green is stuff can wait till next service. The red is it must be done now. It's the amber bits. It's the bits that can't wait till the next service, but not quite ready now. Like your brakes, tires, they might be able to last an extra 3 months. Put some reminders in place, whether that's a reminder for yourself or to send something to the customer that those brakes are now due. And the easiest way to do that is to secure that now. So if you know those brakes are due in 3 months and that customer's not ready to do that today, they don't want to spend the cash, they want to stretch it out a little bit. Okay, let's book you in now. We get booked up pretty fast. Brakes are really important. It's just one less thing you have to worry about in 3 months. Let's get that job booked in for you now. And then next, don't rely on the text. So we see workshops, they've got emails set up, text messages set up, and that's fantastic. But nothing beats a phone call. Because if you think about it yourself, you've got the email, you're like, right, I know I need to do that, but I'll get to that later. I've got a text message, yeah, I'll get to that later. But if someone calls you, it's like, great, you've actually taken that thing off my list. You've made my life a hell of a lot easier. Thank you for giving me a call. And then lastly, set a KPI. So this is make it part of your rhythm, whether it's you doing it or somebody in your team, set aside time each day, or maybe it's a couple of times a week where you're actually picking out, 5 customers that are due for a service. Make it part of your rhythm. This is one of the most important things that's going to keep your business rolling and keep that cash flow consistent. Okay, last tip. We're up to the last one. So we've run through all of this. We've got all the cash sorted. We've got the workflow sorted. Now it's about the team. And why is this important? Because you don't make money trying to do it all yourself. This is where a lot of business owners go wrong, is they think they can do everything. I can do the invoicing and the books and I can do the marketing, etc., etc. You're there to run a business and you're there to obviously work on your cars. You're there to work with your team, work with your customers. Let the experts in the other fields do that. So make sure you've got a good team around you. And the other mistake we see workshops make is the first hire they make is a mechanic. That shouldn't be your first hire. You need to make sure your books are sorted, your pricing's right, you've got your marketing right. Make sure you've got a good infrastructure in place before you start adding more overheads. Because we know if you add another mechanic, they cost a lot of money. So you're adding a lot more cost. And if your profit's not where it should be, as you grow, that profit actually gets more constrained. It actually gets worse. And all your cash flow and all your issues that you've already got is only going to get greater the more mechanics you actually bring on board. So what I suggest is that the first hire is actually a bookkeeper. And this isn't just for workshops, any business, the first hire should actually be a bookkeeper. You might have a family member doing that, and that's quite common, but make sure they actually have some experience with it, whether they do a course or something like that. You want someone who's actually really experienced, because what that means is then you're presented with really clean numbers. You know exactly where you stand, and it's less time with the accountant, it's less money with the accountant. You really should only be seeing your accountant once a year, or if you've got a particular situation that comes up. So my tip would be a bookkeeper that's also BAS certified. They run all your BASs for you, lodge your super, etc. So your accountant doesn't have to do that, and work with them to make sure you've got that cost of sales line set up. You don't have to spend a lot of money. This could be with a separate company, a contractor. You should be able to get away with it for $50 to $100 a week in terms of the size of most businesses. So it's not a huge expense. And if you do have a family member, great, but just make sure they're actually experienced at doing that. The second hire is a marketer. Now, please don't try and do this yourself. So in terms of networking, sure. In terms of getting reviews, sure. But in terms of your Google Maps, your websites, Google Ads, anything else that you want to do, particularly Google related, make sure you've got someone who knows what they're doing. So it's kind of like when someone rings you and they're a DIYer on their own car, and you know if someone's looked on YouTube and they're trying to replace parts of the car, you know it's going to go wrong. You know there's going to be mistakes. They're going to call you to fix things. You know they're spending a lot more time and money and effort than they thought they were originally going to spend. So just have some experts around you. You're the expert at fixing a car. You're the expert at running your business and your team. The best businesses will always outsource the expertise to those who are experts at that. Now the third hire, you're ready for a mechanic. So once your house is on order, your numbers are sorted, you've got a strong marketing in place, bookkeeper, etc., and you're at capacity and you're ready to scale, that's obviously when it's time to get in the mechanic. And the fourth hire is, you've got everything rocking and rolling, but you're still quite busy because you've got admin, you're still managing invoicing and answering the phone. That's time for an admin. So most of these people, other than a mechanic, can be part-time, they can be contractors. You don't have to have full-time staff on board to do all of this. But again, make sure you're hiring right and hiring at the right time. So essentially, oh, one more tip on here. No holidays during the busy period. Kind of makes sense. Do what you want in terms of running your business, but the amount of workshops we've spoken to recently, I've just been in Bali for 3 weeks, and now my workshop's a bit of a mess because it's really, really busy. Just be smart about when you're taking holidays, and particularly your staff as well. So that's our 6 tips. I hope you wrote a lot down about those. But now it's kind of like where to from here, right? So I'm sure you've written a bunch of stuff down. I hope you have. I hope you've got something different out of this in terms of things that you might have forgotten about or not thought about that before. But it's kind of where do you start, right? And you'll have on your list probably something that stands out and you think, right, that's the next thing I've got to do. But aside from that, it's kind of where to. So let's go back upstream in terms of where we started. We want to make sure we've got a good stream of new customers coming in, regardless of how established we are. And we want to make sure we've got good credibility in our local market. So I suggest if you don't know where to start, consider Google Maps and make sure your Google Maps is sorted. And this is one of the tricks where people think they can do it themselves. And yeah, you can. You can go on there and put a description and some photos and get some reviews, but it goes much, much deeper than that. And you really need an SEO specialist to be running your maps for you. It's kind of one of those expertise type areas. Google makes it a bit simple to be a DIYer, but it's all those layers underneath where you need, a Google approved platform and the right software, etc., to really get into the nitty gritty of making sure you're popping up for as many searches as possible in your local area. So get that sorted first and make sure you've got someone managing that. Once you've got that sorted, the next thing is around a website. So you're probably not going to get found organically online because you need to spend a shitload of money on SEO. However, what we know is that 60% of people who visit Google Maps, and remember, this is the way most people are finding new workshops is through Google Maps. 60% of people visiting Google Maps want to view the business's website before they make a decision. So think about that. You've got the effort of having a really good ranking Google Maps profile. 60% of those people want to know a little bit more about you before they're making a decision. So they might click on your website and a couple of others. And if you don't have a website, well, that's automatically 60% of viewers that you've missed out on. Or if you do have a website and it's not high performing and high converting, you're going to miss out on a lot of those as well. So what that means is, have you got fast load speed? Does it tell the customer kind of what you do? Is their phone number at the top that they can click? It's all those little things in the back end, which is again like an SEO and a technical build thing that makes sure that you're converting customers as easily and as quickly as possible. So that's where I suggest you start. But obviously there's lots of other bits and pieces as well. So we'll send the recording and you can go through that and go through a bit of a checklist yourself. But for today, what I'd like to do is have an offer for everybody that's online today. If we're not managing your Google Maps, and I know we're managing maps for a lot of people online today, if we're not managing it or you don't have somebody else managing it, We're offering a free audit of your Google Maps profile to see how it scores and what opportunity there is to improve your ranking and performance. If we do manage your Google Maps and that's all sorted, then we're offering a free audit of your website. And I know we've done that for a bunch of our partners already. We are a full-scale marketing agency and we specialize in digital marketing for automotive workshops, and we only do automotive, and that's our expertise. So we can do an audit on your website if you think it's in a bit of a need for an upgrade, and we can give you a performance score and how you're actually converting. So that's it from me. We're pretty much smack on time. We're pretty much right on the 45 minutes. However, I will open it up for a couple of questions. So put the questions in the chat, and Rebecca's going to jump back online now and see if we've got any questions in there, burning questions that we need to answer now.
So I think one of the things that's come up is around the buckets, understanding the 5 buckets, and prioritizing which are the most important, because obviously 5 buckets is a lot of buckets, so to speak.
Yep.
What are
Yes.
your thoughts around that?
Start with the first one, just like anything. So put them in order. Start with the first one. Make sure you got an ATO one. That's where most businesses, if they're going to come unstuck with cash flow, it's ATO. You don't want to come unstuck with the ATO. It's the one of the biggest bills that you have, and particularly the BAS, if you're doing that quarterly, it's where people come unstuck. Just make sure you set that up first. Look, one of the tips will be you can actually just go to your bank and say, I want these 5 accounts and I want them fee free. Just make sure they're fee free, and most banks will actually do that. You don't want to incur extra charges. It's pretty simple to sit down with your bank and do them all at once. If you want to do one at a time, kind of do them in order. You might do your profit last potentially, but just start with what's going to make the difference. I'd go ATO, I'd go parts, I'd go profit, salaries, and then OPEX in that order.
Mm,
Yeah, because
thank you.
it's a big concept. It's a new concept for a lot of businesses, but it is the one that's going to make the biggest difference and help you sleep at night.
So another question was just around industry standards for call-out fees. So I'm going to assume we're talking mobile. And I guess there's 2 different conversations there. One's heavy, one's light. Do you
Yep.
want to just, again, this is all around the revenue and making sure that
Yep.
you're actually charging correctly. Yep.
Yeah, look, the general rule of thumb is a minimum 1 hour. So regardless, if you've got a workshop and you've got a vehicle that goes out and you do a little bit of mobile or you bring them back in, the rule of thumb is a minimum of 1 hour, and that will include some level of service. So you might say it's a minimum 1 hour, and that includes half an hour of me diagnosing the problem. And if I fix the problem in that time, great, that's all you pay. If it's something else, then we'll quote on that. Heavy vehicles a bit different. If you're in a regional area and you have to drive a lot, you can afford to go a bit higher. If it's out of hours, you can definitely do a lot higher. We've got heavy vehicle mechanics that do breakdowns out of hours and will charge minimum 4 hours. That's on the other end of the scale. But if you just stick with a minimum 1 hour as a starting point, then you're in a good place.
Thank you.
Very good. I think we've kind of run out of time. What I have put here is what will you do today? And what I'd really like you to do is not go back straight to the workshop and then forget all of this. Make sure you've just written down a couple of things, like what are your key takeaways? Spend a couple of minutes now and just write down like what are the things that you're going to do right now. So you might have written a list of 10 things. You're not going to do 10 things today for sure. But what is the 1 or 2 things you're going to action next, and who's going to do it and by when? Make yourself accountable and make sure you get something out of this that you can action quickly. Definitely a busy time of year, but the sooner you get this sorted, the sooner you're going to have that smooth cash flow and sort a lot of stuff out in your business. Look, thank you everybody for joining. I hope that's been super helpful. Like I said, we'll send this out if you want others to watch it or take some notes. But thank you for joining us. This will be our last webinar for this year. We will have definitely a whole bunch of series coming up next year. Many of these topics today deserve a webinar all on their own. But again, thank you for your time today, and see you later.